Hi everybody, Chris Titley here and welcome to Scoreboard. Scoreboard is based on one simple premise, and that is premium access for curious minds. We have conversations with athletes, coaches, owners, CEOs, stakeholders, broadcasters, and people who think, lead and make things happen. No buzzwords, no jargon, just clear thinking, lived experience, and lessons that you can use to be a better you. We bring the access, they bring the experience, and you bring the curiosity. Together, we build the only scoreboard that matters, your own. Scoreboard, premium access for curious minds.
This episode is powered by Swyftx, Australia's top-rated crypto exchange and proudly homegrown. Now let's get to today's episode.
Hi, it's Chris Titley here. On today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, we're sitting in Centre Court at Hoops Capital East with Brian Goorjian. Brian, thank you so much for being part of this series, and what a beautiful Sydney day it is.
No, it's a great day. We're saying that driving in today because we've had a lot of rain, and beautiful day today, and had a nice coaches meeting, so everything's behind me, and I've got a free afternoon.
Right.
So today's a good day.
Yes. What do you do at the coaches meeting?
Well, we've got a couple new staff members, and our team's just assembled. So, getting everybody on the same page right now and making sure all the coaches are on the same page on where we're headed and where we've been and how we're progressing. So right now, I'm as a head coach, relationship building and communication is a really important aspect early in the challenges of this season.
Are you as excited as a coach as you've ever been in terms of a coach through all these seasons?
I am. The drive and the hunger's always there, and I don't know what it feels like not to have that, but I know this year there's an added energy towards this because I'm no longer coaching the Boomers. So I was always, having two teams, and your energies are split a little bit. So full focus now here, and two, last year was a challenging year. New, as I've said, new coaching staff, all new team. For me, coming back to the Sydney Kings, new ownership, and established some things last year, but didn't get to where we wanted to go. So I'm energized by the changes that we've made, the group that we've put together for this year, and taken a step forward from what took place last year.
When you've got a new ownership group and you've got the Brian way for so many years in terms of your coaches, your principles, your values, and you may have a new CEO, how does it all intertwine, and how do you communicate to get that to where you want to be?
Well, I always talk about the winnings and the picking when you do the player scenario. I think it's the same in taking a job. I'm very selective now on which job or I'd rather not work, and to this aspect that you're talking about, the way you're built, the way you put a team together, what's important to you. There's a lot of things that you want ticked that you're on the same page with, and my communication with Robin Denholm, the owner, and Luke Longley, who was my meeting with the Kings, and I met with a few for this last season after I came back from China. What next? They ticked the boxes. So Robin, what her vision is for the team, how you build a team, what's important. I felt a connection there, and again, we went through a rough process last year, and we were on the same page right through it. And so I feel good. That's why I'm excited about this year. It's part of the build, to be good at anything, there's process. And you're going to go through process, and going through process with somebody that's on the same page is important, or you've picked the wrong job.
I was talking to Guy Malloy just before about process, and sometimes when you believe your process, you might not get the results, and you may start potentially doubting your process. Let's talk about your process, and in terms of your belief in your coaching style and your ability to get results, and now you're kind of fine-tuning it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a general, or I've been in this a long time, and I feel comfortable about how you go about this. But there's also the process of evolving, getting better at what you do. And I can't coach basketball the same way I coached basketball 5 years ago. Certain things are more important in today's game than prior in style of play, in growing. So my energy is more put towards evolving and getting better at what I do, especially as I get older. Because I feel like if you're set in your ways and you're not willing to change, if you're not willing to listen, that's the sign of a guy that's on his way out the door. So example being this year when the season finished, not having the Boomers, I went and spent, close to a month with the New York Knicks, and went to practice sessions, went to film sessions, met with coaches, met with players, and I feel like got better at the game. And then constantly for me right now, I know it was my first year last year, and my involvement with the Boomers, a real important aspect of this job for me right now is communication and relationship building. And again, and I'm talking about it, I started in this game and I was there, I started at 31, so brother, and then father, and now grandfather. So this evolution that I'm talking about is in there in an important aspect, but your core beliefs and how you go about your business is, and that process, the core of it has always been intact. And I think it's, in our industry, you win or you lose. So there's no gray area. And over the course of time, for a continued period of time, I feel very good about the runs on the board.
The binary outcome of winning versus losing and the competitive nature of yourself and these professional athletes, where does winning sit for you now, being a bit more aged in your coaching career?
Well, the winnings, and again, it goes back to kind of the last thing about process, but I think the thing I get the most enjoyment out of now is the development, not only basketball-wise, but as the person. So now I'm at my age now, I've got guys that have played for me that are 50, and seeing them, the fathers, seeing them, the businessman, seeing them, the family man, the things, and that was always, in my development that was different here. It's a club system. We were brought up through school system, and we were always told, if you're part of this basketball team or part of this sport, you're going to beat your classmates in anything that you do because of the things you learn about being involved in this. And my point being is that watching them become a better player, but also in becoming a better player, you're developing social skills, you're developing work ethic, you're developing trust, honesty, respect, all of those things. And I'm, at this stage in my life, been able to see guys now they're no longer playing that aspect. So, and if you're doing that, and they're becoming good people, they're becoming a stronger work ethic, becoming a better player, it leads to winning. Again, so the result of winning games, it's more process, and the enjoyment of that process also equals winning.
What's your view on luck?
I think to get to a lot of times to win the whole thing, there's an element of luck, but consistent winning, consistent performance, consistent excellence, I don't place luck. So example being, I think it's 15 grand finals or 14 grand finals I've been involved in. I've won 6. I went 5 years in a row and lost 5 in a row. Then I won 3 in a row. And in those wins and losses, if you're in that top 4 to get through and win the championship, there's an element of luck. Somebody else has an injury. They make a bad call in your advantage. And it can work and it's so tight when you get to those top 2, and there's an element of luck there. But your goal is consistent winning to be in the games that matter at the end of the year, and now and then you're going to break through and win one.
Big moments in games, do you thrive on them? Are you excited by them, or would you rather the team win by 40?
I like, and we're talking about it now. When you said, "What did you do?"
I was listening in, so that's fine.
we talked about upstairs about our competition right now and the equality of what's going on in the NBL because of Australian basketball right now, and the interest in basketball and the amount of kids playing, and the fact that we've only got 10 teams. There's enough players being produced that there's enough for everybody to be pretty good. And then so there's an equalization in the competition. So coming into it, I've been into it before where there's been the haves and have-nots, and you look at the schedule and this one is going to be comfortable. This one, we know we're going to get one. And it was the same when I was coaching in China. This league right now, there's not one game like that. So I found it obviously too when I started in the national program, and you're with the Boomers and you're playing Serbia, you're playing France, you're playing, Team USA. There's no easy games. And so I am energized now by the competition, and I'm excited about those moments and those opportunities.
I was talking to the head of the BBL, or the general manager of the BBL, and they said they've had 5 different winners in 5 years. And you look at the AFL, 5 different winners in 5 years, and that from an audience point of view, you're like, wow, every game's entertaining, right? And rugby league this year seems to be a bit like that, whereas maybe rugby union, you've had 23 years of the All Blacks bidding against, and you've had various other things. But in terms of basketball and that excitement level, you've got to be, I suppose, really, really in the moment to kind of go with the democratisation of international basketball and the development of grassroots. We're in for a big year coming in the NBL.
100%, and I think the difference from what you're taught when I've been in it, but in the past, there's been a change in equality, but it's been between 4 teams. You've got the Melbournes, you've got the Perths, but now you're adding Wollongong, you're adding Tassie. Cairns has become real strong this year, and Phoenix and that Melbourne rivalry. And none of the other teams are willing to, they're not getting weaker. So the other equality part of this is the Sudanese community. So now you've got, in our sport, you talk about the indigenous, but now we've also got the Sudanese community. And when I look at my roster and the national program, with the Boomers going away for 12 years and coming back and looking and identifying talent, you go, my God, this element wasn't here before. And now you throw that in there, and let's say there's 30 players and there's 10 teams, and you sprinkle 2 or 3 Sudanese players on each team. Again, it's boosting the competition, and what the NBL has done for Sudan in their team qualified for the Olympics and was very, very, very competitive at the Olympics. And most of those players that played for the Sudan were players out of the NBL. So this whole identifying talent, developing talent, competition, growing, learning. I feel very, very fortunate to still be, and when you say today's a great day, when I get up, it's something that, I'm very aware of, because interesting, when I went back to the Knicks, I was around a lot of guys I haven't seen for 20, 25 years that I left Australia in 1977, America, and came here, and saw my high school teammates, and got together for a dinner, retired, and here I am, and I'm thinking, God, man, I'm going to practice tomorrow. I'm energized, and I'm around these young guys. I'm around these young coaches. I'm learning. I'm growing. How fortunate am I? And then coming back and living in Australia, in a country like this, and being a part of a game that was a third-tier sport when I arrived here, and now.
You talk about development, the development of the game at grassroots, right?
100%.
Last 5-10 years?
100%. And
it's just going through the roof. It's almost like a told you so moment, like basketball. It's kind of like, yeah, we're here. We've been around for a while.
I was always, when I was in America, and when I was in 6th grade, and I went out for the basketball team, I was in California. There was baskets it's all outdoors. There's baskets everywhere, and there's 100 kids on the playground. And, you pick 10. And I always got asked when I came here, well, well, you go out for football. You go out for, if you get cut, you join the band, where you came here. And I remember my first couple practices with Lindsay Gaze at Albert Park, and 6 o'clock had come, and we're running up and down. You got to get off the court, State Bank's playing ANZ Bank, social basketball, 6 o'clock at night. I'm like, what is this? So, everybody here, it's clubs, and everyone plays, where the American system was very, 6th grade, you make the team, these 10. Then, 7th grade, there's more kids, and then these elementary schools feed a junior high school, and now you have 3,000 students, and then you go into high school, and now there's 5,000 students, and there's only 10 players. So this system is, and now we're getting coaches, we're getting top level, we talked about the Sudanese community, but the Australian players now, they're seeing NBA players, they're seeing, this is, Australian rules football is Australia's sport, and they promote the hell out of that, and they do a great job with that. We used to always say, but basketball is a world sport. But now, in today's age, you can see it. You can watch the Philippines, you can watch the NBA, you can watch and we've got players playing all over there. So I think young kids are being energized, and top athletes to pick basketball and get involved in basketball. So now the talent pool, the gene pool that we're working with is higher, the coaches are higher, and the results are as you see.
Do you feel proud, in a sense, that you've played that small role in that development?
Very, very. I'm definitely...
And small is no mean feat. I'm just talking about the growth over the course of the change since you came in 77 to where we are now, to what the imprint, the fingerprint you've made on Australian basketball.
Definitely feel a part of it, and definitely proud of that. And I was very fortunate that when I arrived here, my coach was the national coach, Lindsay Gaze. Oh, if you talk about the fingerprint on this or the thumbprint on this in my lifetime here, it's Lindsay. And being with him firsthand of the energy and the truth that he, the under 18s, the under 16s, Victorian basketball, the national coach, development, the Melbourne's advanced to everybody, everywhere in Australia, and maybe, I don't know if in the world, if there's more, and we don't have enough, but if there's more basketball courts for the amount of people than anywhere above Melbourne. And the guy that did that orchestrated that, was Lindsay. So his love of the game, his passion for the game, his trueness, I was a part of for close to 10 seasons. And it definitely had an effect on me. And, I loved basketball, but he made it, by the time I finished, I continued to play when I finished college, and playing for Lindsay, what I'm saying, energized me to continue. And now as I look back on it, we talk about process in the day-to-day. You never look in the rearview mirror, but as you're coming down the back stretch of this, you look back and go, man, it's been an incredible journey, very, very fortunate. And as I said, guys at 50, 60, I have story after story where I was sitting somewhere and some guy will tap me on the shoulder and say, you coached me at St. James in 1978, and my kids play, I still play, you introduced me to basketball. So there's a lot of those moments that really touch you.
And those players that had you as the coach, do you remember most of them?
100%. 100%. The ones that from Ballarat through, and when I played, with the Melbourne Tigers through, what are the funny ones are, it was, I got back from China and we had the blitz, the
pre-season? It was not all the start of the...
all the teams get together.
Like the gather round and the magic round.
Pre-season blitz. And I've been away...
The Gold Coast, was it? Yeah.
Correct. Yep. I've been away in China for 12 years or whatever. Everything's, this meeting, that meeting, seeing back for the first time in a long time, referees, players, coaches, and finished the thing, and I was fried. And I plopped down and I'm having a red and a meal with a friend, and some guy taps me on the shoulder, and I turn and look, and he goes, remember me? And I look at, and I'm looking at this head, and I go, absolutely not. And he goes, you coached me, and we won the championship. And so I said, man, Kevin Shea, whatever, I shake his hand, and and the guy said, you remember him? He was 12 years old,
Oh, right.
So he walks back, he comes back, and he's got a picture on his phone of the championship team, and I'm standing there, and all the kids are behind me.
That's me.
And they're holding, and he goes, he was 12 years old. And so now I go, how old are you now? And he was like 58 years old, and he goes, I still play, my kids play. So it was I have moments like that, because when I came to Australia, we weren't like the imports now. We weren't hired guns. There was a common.
I think Cal Bruton might have said that he was one of the first imports coming in, player imports, and that would have been.
I was before Cal.
Yeah.
All right, and so, and me and my hired we'll get you a job in your profession. So I worked at St. James as a teacher, and I lived at Scotch College and was a housemaster. And then I played basketball for Lindsay, but and the imports at that time had a kind of a bond that we were all backpackers that loved the game, that just hopped on and said, you used to get a deal if they needed teachers here. So a lot of us were teachers, and a lot of us loved the game, and we weren't getting paid to play basketball. We had a passion for the game. And
what was life like in '77, and what made you come over? What was the drive to come to Australia?
I played, it's an incredible story, but my senior year, we played what was billed as the Australian net. Every game, every college team would have a game against a foreign team as a practice game to start their year. And we did Serbia, we did Germany, my senior year was Australia. So I'll never forget, we come in, and back then, short back and side, if you had stubble on your face, back to your room, discipline. And in comes the Australian team, and they look like an AC/DC rock band. What are those shoes they're wearing? They're wearing Ugg boots, and they've got long hair. And after the game's finished, we have with the sponsors, they're drinking beer, chasing the cheerleaders. And I remember sitting with the guys on our team, and they're all going, I want to play on that team. So
did you win?
We won by about 40, but it was not the Australian national team. It was a club team from Newcastle. I found out later.
The Falcons,
but it wasn't the Falcons. It was like a club team, and they weren't very good, but they were a barrel of fun, and they looked like they were having fun, and they were everything that looked like a good time. So they left an impression, and off they went to play other games. And at the end of the year, my roommate was about 6'8", 6'9", and he was going to college. He was going to get a professional contract to play in Europe. So there was a goodbye party for him, and his junior college coach who was famous, came to the deal, and he was sitting next to me. And I remember sitting there going, God, man, I wish I could play overseas. And back then it was always big guys, and I was a guard. My position was a perimeter player. And he goes, I'll tell you what, I just did clinics in Australia. And he goes, if I had a son, that's exactly where he'd be. And I looked at him, and he goes, I can get you there in a heartbeat. So he goes, I'll get back to you. So he called me up, and he gave me Lindsay Gaze's phone number, because that's who he did clinics for in Victoria. I called Lindsay, and about a week later, phone call, hey, you want to come, and it was my dad was a coach at the time, and I remember, because it was a big deal no one knew anything about Australia. I remember the plane flight. I had no idea. The guy next to me said, relax, you got 15 hours to go. And I'm like, 15 hours? You know what I mean? I had no idea what I was walking into. My dad said, you can always go there, hop on the plane, and come home. But he goes, if follow your passion, if you're, when you're 50, you look back and said, I should have given it a shot. So I got there, and I remember phone calls were expensive back then.
And you also probably had to do the 0061, about 25 different digits, and then hold for the operator.
Hey, Dad, I'm not coming home. And I knew within 6 months of being in Australia, this is me. This is me. I loved the whole Melbourne experience, being fortunate to be with Lindsay, and that whole aspect, the lifestyle, the place, everything about it. And within 6 months, I'd already made my decision.
And when you came to Australia in '77 and you watched your first game of VFL in Melbourne, what do you think?
I could not. To be on, I can't remember my first thought. I just remember Kevin Bartlett, and I remember everybody yelling "hungry, hungry," and I was standing behind the goal square and looking at this and going to the cricket for the first time. The tennis was at Kooyong, and I was staying at Scotch, so seeing all the sport. But when you talk about AFL football, actually that became very influential in my coaching, and my love of that game it's been a challenge, because that's the one that gets everything, and you were always the third tier sport. But the people involved in that sport, that the sport is a spectacle. I think it's incredible, and the coaches that have been involved in that game have, because it was funny, when I finished playing for Lindsay, I went right into head coaching, and I went back to the States, and I'm going to do a 4 or 5 day coach learn a little bit about it before I go to Ballarat and coach. And one of the things said to me, and one is, they're going to be great. There's something they're good at over there, and sport, crawl into it and grow, you know. And basketball didn't share much. There wasn't, you know, and there wasn't, didn't have much relationship there other than Lindsay, and Lindsay was the arch rival, you know. So, you know, I got into Australian rules football, and back then it was Terry Wallace, you know, Nathan Buckley. I can.
Which era are you talking about?
Right, all the way through.
Like but the Hawthorne era, the Gary Buckenauer and Jason Dunstall and all those.
Those guys as players, but Tony Shaw was an ex-basketball player, and I said Terry Wallace was an ex-basketball player, Paul Roos, and then when he was at the Swans, Nathan Buckley, as time went on, but just Robert Walls, David Parkin. My memory and horrible with names, but those guys, you know, I would go to their practices, learn. I think Australian rules football and sport in general in Australia is, if you don't have teamship, if you don't have that togetherness, you can't win. It's the edge you have to have. If you don't have it, you're not going to win at all. Where in America, you know, you go to if we get along, great. If we don't, get your 15 points and 10 rebounds, do your job. We're okay. You know, it's not as an important element. So that teamship, the individual skill, the weight training, the leading teams with Ray McLean and all the background and all that, the Bloods with, I mean, a lot of that was instilled in me. And then in America, that meeting I had, it was always, you know, my start, and when you say process, was outwork them. You know, he said, I remember he said, Aussies like their holidays, they like their beer, they're going to do their day's work, and then they're going to, you know, burn them down. You know, if they train at 6 to 8, you're going to train at 6 to 8. You're going to come back and train at 3 to 5. So when I went to Ballarat and I started in it, that was my whole mindset. Was, you know, grind this thing out, which evolved into me being attractive to young players. Young players came and played in the teams that I was at because they felt like they'd get better in the environment that we had. And then there was another group of players that weren't attracted at all. And you learn, I guess, in sport that, you know, I think if you're attractive to everybody, you're not very good. You're not for everybody. It's, you know, and mine started that way.
You bring up an interesting point about the AFL and the team, right? Because as a player in the AFL, you're playing at a team level and you win a premiership, hypothetically, like the Lions did last year. So you're a premiership winner. Then there's not much else. Maybe a second premiership winner, a third premiership winner. When it comes to basketball, you've got the NBL, and if you're really, really good, you might go to the NBA, or you might represent your country at the Olympics.
Correct.
How do you balance that a little bit in terms of the individual person coming through going, I don't want to stay in Australia, I want to play in America, or I'm playing for my boomer spot, versus AFL, I suppose, where there's nothing more?
Yeah, I mean, if your job is to make every player the best that he can possibly be. And like with the Kings right now, most of these guys are on a journey, and the goal isn't, we're part of a process to move you to, hopefully, to the Boomers, to the NBA, and if you do a good job of that, you get the next one. So, you know, you got these 5 guys and they have potential to be, and if those guys go on and reach their potential and end up playing EuroLeague or playing in the NBA or playing for the Boomers, the next crop that come through are attracted to you. And that's been the, you know, and you're most proud of is, one of the first NBA draft guys came in just out of tennis 1 year with the tie, Chris Anstey, and ended up being the 15th guy taken in the draft. And from him, Sam McKinnon, Frank Drimmick, Jason Smith, all of a sudden all of a sudden, so development, making a player or helping a player become the best they can be. And all of this, what you find and I learned it became loud and clear when you were at the Boomers, is word of mouth. Players talk. Hey man, this program's really good. If you want to get better, go to this guy. He's really. Now I'm not saying them talking about me. I'm saying, you realize that players all communicate with each other, and being in China, and you can't speak the language or communicate. How do you get their respect? How do you get them? And two things, work ethic. If you're the first one in there, I'm in Team China, Red Army, all these 7-foot Chinese guys, and I've stepped off the floor and walk in. I can't communicate with them. How do you get their attention? How do you get them to any respect? How do you earn that? And you can't. One of the things that, and I'm sure you can tell by this, I can talk. I can verbalize. That's taken away from you. So one of the things Yao Ming, Gigi, all these great players, the video. So sit down with them and their personal clips. Here, I got this, Yao. Have a look at this. Nobody was doing that. You're the first one in the gym, and then all of them, no matter, players know if you're competent. And so one of the hardest things to do is to take, there's the team thing and making a team better, but taking you as a player and making you a better player. This foot goes here, this hand goes here. The counter to that is this. And players know if you're competent and if you know what you're doing. So constantly video, coaching clinics, America, growing, learning your craft. And it became really, a lot of things when you talk about clarity and simplicity, I think the magic is in that. It became, and so much growth, and I told you about, growth and then things but the growth in China in that area because of the communication aspect and how to be able to compete and win and get respect really got me in that lane. And when I came back to Australia and I could do this again, and I turned and looked and go, God, I've become a lot better in a lot of areas by that experience.
What about fun in all of this with professional athletes, lots of money, professional coaches, etc.? Are you having fun, or is it a hard slog?
I always, my God or my goal, the guy I love is Bruce Springsteen. I love Bruce Springsteen, and I love, it's like if I was a musician and if I wasn't I'd want to be like the energy, the passion, I feel like I've got that life. I'm, if you say to your grandson or you say to your daughter or whatever, my dad to me, and I've heard people say different aspects. It's not always going to be fun. You got, follow your passion, follow what you, and I keep my life, I look back and go, I haven't gone to work. I haven't put on, I've fell in love with this game, and I've done nothing but play a game my whole life and fed my family with that and been involved in my passion the whole time. So when and I'm at a point now when that stops, I'll stop. And right now here I am in my 70s, and I feel as energized and excited about the upcoming season, my players, my opportunity, so again, on that side of it, blessed. And I have, I think back a particular moment when I told you about, going from elementary school to junior high school, and then high school is 4, 5, and 6, and if you get a college scholarship to college, and I was this I was very tall, very thin, and the coach invited a guy to come and speak to us, and I remember he was on the cover of Wheaties, and he was the decathlon championship. His last name, this was a guy from the 50s, so it's like Richards.
Pretty hard to Google.
Richards or what, but he was a world champion, and he came in and everyone's sitting down and you're just riveted, and I just, it was hard I had the attention span of a blowmouth, but he had my attention. His presence, and he turned and I think of Tom Hafey, that kind of body, that kind of presence. He just, and I'm like this, and he goes, you can be. Ordinary people do extraordinary things, and basically the message is you can do, and it's all up to you. Whatever you put in, whatever you can be. And I'd never thought like that. And then when he finished, the message hit me. And then he walked over and he grabbed a ball off the ball rack and he kissed it. And he goes, if you're good to this, it'll take you places you can't believe. And in a world that, and I think of that message when here I am in Tokyo or in Paris with the national team, going out to play Team USA and back to that day. When you say you reflect on something all the time, that one hits me all the time, man. Like where that ball's taken me. And when you ask the question about passion and joy and love and how fortunate, it's not something I just blow off. It's something I think about all the time.
And in terms of the players, you sometimes see that they might be in a bit of a rut, and then that relaxation, just go out and just have fun. Go back to your roots and why you play the game. Or is it
very, very, very much a thought process. Are they having fun? Are they enjoying this process? Are they bawling? Are they? And that there is an element of discomfort in different periods of time that you got to communicate to it. But the point that you're making, I'm much more aware of it than I've ever been. Is this? Are they enjoying the game? Are they loving the game? Are they energized by the game? And it's funny, I think about it with my grandson who's starting to play now at 8. No, don't force him on the bat. You got to make 100 shots when you go, fall in love with the game. And the point that you're making, I think there's a part of coaching that our conversation can't touch. Do you have feel? Is every guy different? Hell yes. Do I teach everybody the same? No. Certain guys are taught in certain manners, and certain guys need a hard hand, like this. Certain guys you need to back off and hit them with 4 positives or whatever. Certain guys you got to give breaks to, but there is definitely something that I evaluate and talk about, and it's the same with the coaches. Are they getting better? Are they growing? Are they getting nurtured? Are they getting opportunities? It's a big part of this.
And the players are considered high performers, but then let's talk about the coach. The coach has to be high performing as well in an organisation. What keeps you high performing? What keeps you at the highest level in terms of being the best that you could possibly bring to the team?
I think, and I said this, the most important thing for me now and hard as you get older is grandpa talking to, are they looking at me like some,
well, you mentioned attention span before. Like, have the attention span's dropped a little bit in terms of nowadays?
Communication, relationship building, and am I learning? Am I growing? Like if you don't evolve with this thing in our sport, and I constantly look, and I told you about Australian rules football, and go back to like the name Jason Dunstall, Plugger, guys like the game's north, south, side to side, ball movement, player movement, pressure on the ball. Our game's the same. And so the game I played, not only played, but coached 5 years ago, and how I coached. Run a set play, run it until you know every aspect of the set play, and you sit in it and you just grind it out. Now the game's played advantage, disadvantage, decision making. So you're playing at pace, you're playing it, and so how do you coach that? It's completely different coaching than I coached 5 years ago. So the practice point, take away the dribble, add numbers, take numbers away. Totally different than it was 5 years ago. And when I went to Vegas this time and spent time with the Knicks, how do you use a ballroom and do it without a basketball in a basket and do game prep?
Basketball without basketball?
Basketball without basketball. Basketball terminology. I use this, and now they say this. Run wide, scrape the sideline. I like scrape the sideline. Never heard it before, but there's probably 10. So you come back from that, and you've got a notebook, you've got all these things on your computer, and you go, man, I'm not going to instill that everything, but I'm growing, I'm learning, and that aspect for me is a very, very important part of staying in the game. Because I think if you're the communication piece, the competence in growing and learning is when that stops or slows down, then it's time to move away.
And you mentioned about the evolution of basketball. Are you comfortable with the evolution of basketball, or are there things that you're going, I just don't agree with that, but that's kind of the way it's going, I better agree with it?
I love the game and the way the game is being played. Some of the things around it, what's going on in college basketball right now with the NIL money, I think that's a huge discussion, and with sometimes now, the entitlement aspect, and I'm as you build these relationships, people that that you want to spend time with, and you want to grow, and you want to. So I go back to, and I hope I'm not veering from your question, but one of the first things when I started, because there's like, let's say 10 dot points you live by, and one of them is the winnings and the picking. And that came from, like the selection of people is really important. And in that selection now, that piece, there's, is the person entitled? Is it about the money? Is it about the game? Does he have the work? So there's more challenges, I think, around the game. As I said, when I started, the guy that spoke to the team, my high school coach, my 8th grade PE teacher, those guys, Lindsey Gaze. Now there's a group around these players. This guy's gonna make, if he does it, I can identify now at 10 years old, you might make $40 million a year. How many people now? Who's his circle of influence? Who's the, so you're looking at things and evaluating things you didn't before, and there's more obstacles around it. To answer your question, the game itself, the pace of the game, the athleticism, the style of play, I'm loving it. And I say the same thing with Australian rules football. I love the pace. I love the scoring activity. I love the pressure on the ball. I love the athletes that being built, and how you're coaching and how you're teaching and the way the game's growing.
And what about all the data that comes with that, and all the peripheral stuff around nutritionists and diet and all these forward-thinking ways? Are you still a little bit old school, or are you running with it? You're constantly looking for an edge. So it started with me with
from the football was the teamship, the conditioning, the way. Now you're moving into, this piece of this analytics, and now for me, some people are buried in that, and some people you're asking really good questions, because let's say when I'm looking for an assistant coach, a lot of people are good with the computer in front of them and good at the data, but when you're in the locker room and the personal touch and being able to shirt front, being able to deliver information is a skill that there's some issue that some guys struggle with that, and in a big way. And then and I'm always saying, the computer, the information's important, but I would rather you have respect and build a relationship with a guy than being, buried in the computer and uncomfortable in that position. And then the analytics, to me, there's a lot of information being dealt, and I'm looking at, well, who are the 4 guys he's playing with? What's the time? What's the score? Is it the first quarter? Okay, he's got 16 points and it's blah, 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 blah. Well, did he score 12 in the first minute, and then when there's 8 minutes to go in the game and the game's on the line, he never makes a basket? Does he come into the game with 3 guys that aren't very good? And so I think there's a lot of times with the information. So what is God to me is clarity and simplicity. So what out of all this analytics can you pull out of? Can you pull out 4 things that really matter and really make you win, and not that? I think that's the magic. Is in, like I keep saying, is in the clarity and in the simplicity, and it's hard to stay in that. And I was really challenged in that area with the national team. You wanna, and I got some great advice there, and I think the simplicity, the clarity, really, really helped us get a medal.
The clarity when it comes to a big timeout with 3 seconds to go or something and the game's on the line, what gets you in the right frame of mind to get that clarity and that simplicity, just to bring it back? Because there's probably a lot of tension. A lot of people are like, what now, coach? Or what are we doing? And you're like, right. I
think it's something that you've got to practice. It can't be
decision making or clarity or both.
I think both, and then those moments can't be. It's got to be I know, and I'm not only in that scenario, but I give you the best example of clarity is when we lost to Team USA, when we got the bronze medal that we've never got. When I walked down the staircase going into the locker room after the loss, which is you can't we lost, and we continue. We've got another game now for 3rd place that we've never won, which is a bronze medal. As we were walking down the stairs and I swung, I knew exactly what I was going to say. And it was, everybody, I visualized winning. I visualized losing. And I knew as I was walking down that stair, I knew where I was going to put my foot. I knew who I was going after. I knew exactly what was going to come out of my mouth. And like clockwork, when the thing's on the sideline and you're down 1 point and you call a timeout, the crowd isn't there. We've done this at practice. We're in B, down. Option 1 is here, here, and here. Let's go. And you're not sitting, this game's getting close. If it's 10, so what do I do at a timeout? It's rehearsed. And if you're ever in a moment where you don't have that plan B, plan A, and you're not prepared. And in coaching, and I'm not a lone ranger in our competition. We're geared for that moment. And when nervous before the game, and the pit of your stomach, sit in the car seat this way, open the door, all the superstition, I've got all of that. But once the ball goes up, it's like you're like I'm here right now at practice. And I'm the same way in the game as I am in practice. Oh, you never sit down, you never walk, you walk on the sideline. From the time a ball's gone up and I started in coaching, I've never sat down. And I don't sit, I stand the whole game. And that's how I am at practice. And those timeouts and those moments that you're talking about are moments that you've practiced, you've been involved in for a long period of time.
Just touching on the Team USA into the bronze medal match, and you visualised losing. What was your visualisation before that third, fourth game? Did you visualise winning and losing?
I was the most nervous I've ever been in my life for a game. So I'm answering your question. When the game finished, I had a conversation with a player late that night. He left. I coiled up. I had to go to shoot around or meeting that next day. Really difficult to get out of bed, really difficult to move. And then the rest of the day, I had that door shut and I was in there. And I'm nervous before a game, but I'd never been like this before. And I thought about it, and the reason why I was nervous, I could not imagine, I had no of what to do going down if we lost that game. So Patty Mills, Joe Ingles, a long process, 12 years separate, come back 5 times. This is it in my mind for them.
They're not coming back for another 4 years later.
In my mind, this is the last opportunity in their mind. If we lose, it's 5 times you've been dumped on this. What do you come? Okay, we'll all huddle up. Next time, there's no, and so my answer to you in my whole career, 40 years of coaching, I had nothing for them if we lost that game. And could not imagine it, could not think about it. And when it finished, not only, it was COVID, you're in this little box, but I realized it was one of those moments. If you have, what's some of Australia's biggest moment, the whole country. We had, I always say culture, all that stuff, art, it was visual. I mean, everyone in the country could see there was a connection here with that group of players. And it wasn't just in the locker room. And how they played as a group, how they interacted, what they'd done for the game. It was there, and you were in that moment. And I've never felt anything like it afterwards as well. And if that moment, there's nothing close to how I felt after we won that medal.
You talked about nervousness before the game, and the ball goes up, right? And then you're good. You're walking, you're standing, and you're in the game. But then, closer towards the end of that game, there's a little player called Luka Doncic just starts shooting threes. What were you thinking then?
Well, you're in the moment, and the only time I thought anything is I had enough time. Luka doing what Luka does, that's the fight. All right, that's part of, you're throwing punches, and that's some of the punches that are coming, and there's lead swings, and that's what you're living in. That's what it's going to be. It's when there was a minute 48, minute 50 left, you've got it. You've won this thing. So I had a block of time to walk up and down that sideline and catch those eyes and have those hugs and have those high fives before, that was the blessing that I remember. The fight and the lead swings, and it's all part of the battle. You're in it. But you look up and you look up at that scoreboard that they can't come back from here. This is ours. And that block of time I treasured. I got a piece of everybody down that bench, but managers, high five, it was, and it wasn't just that team. It goes back to Lindsey Gaze and and the work and the blood, sweat, and tears, Lindsay, his son, Andrew. I'd lived and been a part of that all the way through, so I'm not just an American off the boat that's come to coach the team for 2 years. I've lived that and watched some unbelievable human beings that I love and care for that we're living and breathing every moment. Because one of the things you get on the uniform, every guy that's ever played is on that. And when you get the medal, all of those guys, Brian Curl, Lindsey Gaze, Barry Barnes, Adrian Hurley, I've been around, they are a part of this. It doesn't just happen with that team. It's a journey that everyone puts in and chips and chips and chips and builds, and boom.
Does that medal get better with age? Like, do you look at it and just
think about it every day? And it was funny that we're in COVID, and I'm in Darwin somewhere, because I got to do so the plane
days,
does it.
Yeah,
we go up there, and I get out of that thing. I'm in it. You can imagine. I told you about we won. So what went on after the win? I was not feeling the best when I got off that plane, and I walked into the
quarantine station
quarantine thing, and I chose. I didn't do the hotel thing. I'd done that. We were in some remote springs up in and I stepped off there, and the whole swim team was in there, and they were chanting as you came in, boomers, boomer. And then I go into this little cottage, and I'm in a cottage, Maddie Nielsen's in a cottage, and Reith Duop's in one. And I just passed out. I've been to bed for 3 days. I passed out, woke up about 10:30, and go and grab a coffee and go. It's 1,000 degrees where we were, and sit out on the front step. And I'm got the coffee, and I turn over, and there's Maddie Nielsen sitting there, and he goes, looks at me, and he goes, we have that. How good was that? And then he goes, yeah, are you ever going to forget that one? And I go, every single day the rest of my life, I'm going to wake up with that. I don't need the medal, I'm wearing that around my heart, that medal around for the rest of my life. And I think to do that it's not, it's not just Australia, but this whole region of Lebanon, because I did the China thing, Lebanon, Iran, Japan, Korea, the Philippines, been there, had players from there. I've been over there for 12 years. All of those places, no one out of this region ever, Chinese Taipei, has ever medaled in basketball. So we were when I go to China, when you go to Manila, and where I was around the Filipinos and all that, that medal, because the whole region, Japan, they're all trying to do that, and it was it was bigger. And we talk about Australian rules football as Australian sport. We're in a world sport, and this whole region we represented. So it's the first time China, Japan, I keep saying it, but like when I went around there, the love and the respect, that instant when you come in, medaled in basketball. Yeah.
Where's the medal now?
Coaches don't get one.
Oh, okay, right.
Coaches don't win. But
are you okay with that?
100%.
Yep.
I was told. I always, when I got my championship rings from the NBL, I always gave my championship to ring somebody special in the journey. And then somebody said, because I was told this prior about the ring, and I thought about it, and he goes, I don't need a ring. I have a ring around my heart for the rest of my life. And I thought about that, and that rang true. It's something.
Yeah.
Something.
No one can take away from you.
100%. It's in there. It's in there forever.
Speaking about sporting moments, obviously, iconic in Australia that game. But as an outsider watching other sports, what's your favourite all-time sporting moment? That doesn't involve the Boomers.
I know.
It's hard to beat.
This will crack you up probably and blow it, but. One that really got to me that I knew nothing about, that being in Australia was the America's Cup, and
it's the third time. Right? Third time. Trevor Hendy was on the America's Cup. He's iconic. Yeah.
I just knew nothing. I didn't even know who Dennis Conner. I didn't know anything about a boat race. Nothing, but how it captured the country. And then the funny part about it is this accent. Back when that took place, there wasn't a ton of us over here, and wherever I went, it was like, we kick your ass, you piece of, you guys suck, and I'm
that
thinking,
guy's American. Go give it to him.
And pubs were in my age at that time, many a time, but you'd walk in. But I had totally into Australia winning that. And the keel, the whole, I got, and I was absolutely, I'm thinking back, was there anything, NBA championships, footy you get emotional, but this was something that touched me that I always think about. Kathy Freeman, that was incredible.
We had Kieran Perkins on recently.
Yeah, there's
Rory McIlroy at the Masters.
And I honestly think about the Boomers in that, because it, whatever happened, a first and is something you can't duplicate. So that was a special.
And when it comes to sporting events, we've got a sponsor here at Scoreboard, which is great. It's Swyftx out of Brisbane. They're Australia's most trusted cryptocurrency platform. They've got over 1.2 million users in Australia and New Zealand. As part of their sponsorship, we've got this little segment called the Bucket List, Brian, which is a sporting event which you haven't attended thus far, that you would love to attend. And as part of their new catchphrase, where can crypto take you? Your bucket list, Brian.
It's because my life, I've been to events that I'm not a wealthy man. I feel like I've led a life because of my position. Like, I'll never going to Rod Laver and watching the tennis Grand Slam, watching Agassi and Borg, and in my generation going to the car race at Albert Park and going, and I'd never have the opportunity to do this. One of the things that I've always wanted to do is, I love college basketball. But I've never been to a Final Four, which is a
March
huge,
Madness.
Yeah, the March Madness, and all the coaches get together and everyone comes. And I've always been here and always been involved in sport, and not been able to do that. So I know when I retire, I'm going to hit that one. But they're on the bucket list: the Grand Slam, a car race. But I've had the opportunity to do that because of the fortunate position of being
but the
a
March
national
Madness
coach
is
for
the March
Australia.
on the calendar doesn't work with you, right?
No,
so
correct.
Is there a
correct.
particular
But
university you'd like to see there at all?
Oh, I mean, my alma mater, Pepperdine, is, but I
Emerging.
that's a given there. That, but I just right now, and it's funny, in the same thing in Australian rules football, you kind of follow coaches. I'm more into coaches than right now, Luke Beveridge is somebody that I've helped me immensely with this Boomer situation. So Bulldogs, David Parkin when he was there, Robert Walls when he was there, Terry Wallace, I remember when they did the whole zoning thing and they beat Essendon with in watching in the basketball thing. So a lot of times in the sport here, I haven't grown up with, being in this particular place and this particular team. No, it's like, God, I really like this guy, and I really hope his team wins, and you kind of follow that. And then if he's out and another one comes in and you like him, or if he shifts teams. Paul Roos was incredible when I came to Sydney for the first time.
Yep.
And came the first time.
60-something years, wasn't it? Yep.
Yeah, and he was doing the whole Bloods situation with the Swans and sharing knowledge. And
so you're a Swans or a Bulldogs fan? Which one?
Right now, I'm a Luke Beveridge fan.
There
right
you go.
now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So go the Bulldogs. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And 16 would have been fun for you then.
Yes.
Yes. I've had Dale Morris on and Tom Boyd on the podcast, and it's just special moments. The premierships, just special. Yeah. One last question, Brian. It's a piece of advice for younger athletes now that want to take it to the highest level, want to play for the Boomers or the Opals or whatever it might be. Some advice to a younger person now in 2025.
I love that, and I was saying you can be your development is within your control, and what you put in, you get out. So, I always end up talking a lot on this subject because I just, surround you, I think your circle of influence, who you get advice from, and then I know, and I always look at it, if it's my grandson, that the people that you're learning from are competent. And our sport, what we do, it's perfect practice. And what you put in, you get. So I give the example of Curry. He was taught how to shoot properly. Show them, they do it, correct it, repetition. And so the work that he put in. So why does he shoot? He shot more than anybody else. Perfect and work ethic. So to me, it's what you put in, you're going to get out. So if you're serious about something and want to do it, give it everything that you got, and make sure that the circle around you, the people that you're listening to, the people you're learning from, the people you're taking advice from, are of high degree.
Brian Goorjian, thank you so much for being on Scoreboard, the podcast today, to sharing your journey from Australia in 1977 to where you are now, still as energised as ever, coming up to the upcoming NBL season. I wish you all the best in the Kings this year, and looking forward to following your progress and helping where I can.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that.